Well, hello there, you scrublords, and welcome to another episode of Devblog Chats. This is your host, Many Miles Away, and today we're going to be discussing the Rank 6 announcement that came out last week at Gamescom 2017 for War Thunder. Now, this is going to be a sort of my opinions, impressions sort of thing from just what I've seen. As many of you have already seen, they have announced composite armor and ERA, armed vehicles to be introduced into the game at a new rank, rank 6, obviously. And we're seeing quite a few here in this trailer. So we've seen MBT-70, T-64, M60A1 armed with ERA. We've got the BMP-1, although the devlog for that has not come out yet. And a couple others from what I've heard, including the M50 Ontos. So, what are my impressions about this? Well, frankly, I'm excited. As somebody who's sort of at the end game for War Thunder, who's got most of the vehicles in the game that he wants, this is really exciting because this takes a big step and opens up a massive range of possibilities for the end game for War Thunder ground forces. Now, there are a few caveats with this. First of all, rank 6 is only for ground forces as of 1.71. They're not introducing any rank 6 aircraft this upcoming patch. In addition to this, there aren't going to be any rank 6 vehicles coming this patch for Britain or Japan. It's only going to be for US, Germany, and Russia this upcoming patch. However, this does not mean that there aren't going to be any aircraft or any lower tier vehicles for ground forces either. One of them was already announced that I did a devlog chats on a couple weeks ago, the Kopfsteier Waffenträger. And so we've got that coming as well. And we've got a few other vehicles. I believe they announced the XA-38 today, which is it's a twin-engine ground attack aircraft for the US, featuring a 75mm tank cannon mounted in the nose, with quite a bit of ordnance as well, so that's going to be quite interesting. So there's also a couple of other topics I'd like to discuss when it comes to rank 6. One of the things that I want to put out there initially is that Gaijin have said, at least Anton Yudintsev have said, that now that there's going to be a rank 6 for ground forces, it is entirely possible for them to be introducing rank 5 premiums. Now there's a couple of cool things about this. One, nice, we're going to be getting a lot more bang for our buck at rank 5. The other thing that is really concerning though is how expensive is this going to be? If they're going to be similar to rank 4 premiums in price, then sure, go for it. But if they're going to be like $50, $60, yeah, US dollars, I'm not feeling that one, Gaijin. I mean, I know I get stuff regardless, but I know how that hurts the wallet. That's a lot of money to be putting down for one vehicle. So I think Gaijin does have an opportunity here. If they do implement tier 5 premiums, which I think they will, at some degree, then Gaijin's profit margins on these vehicles are going to heavily depend on where they place them. As it is, tier 4 premiums are already climbing to be pretty expensive. Not as bad as some of the things that Wargaming is putting out, but it's still very expensive. And I know a lot of people who think that paying $40 for a vehicle is a scam. I personally don't think so, and like I've said in other videos, it all depends on how much you play. But again, is Gaijin going to really make these vehicles worth it by giving us a really, really powerful vehicle like they've done with, say, the IS-6? Or are they going to introduce, say, vehicles that are just as good as vehicles that are already in the tech tree, but price them higher? Again, a lot of this is going to depend on what they introduced and what price they put it at. Other than that, though, it's a pretty cool prospect. I'm definitely eager to see what they come up with in terms of tier 5 premiums. So there's a couple of other things as well. I have been provided with some information from a forum post by a Russian YouTuber. Thank you, Exo, for providing this. And there are quite a few changes coming in the next patch that I think you guys will really enjoy. First of which, there will be some foldering of some tier 5 tanks, for example the T-54. So for those of you guys who are sitting at the T-54 1947 and are going, I have to grind through 2 more of these damn tanks to get to the T-62? That's ridiculous. Well, heads up, there's good news. Next patch, when they release the T-64, they're going to be cutting down on the grind for Tier 5 across the board. S5 pods for Soviet aircraft are in development. On the MiG-17, loadout options will be 2x8 57mm rockets or 2x 202mm rockets. They're not guaranteed to be in 1.71, but it is possible. Gaijin is also considering the BMD series, which is the airborne version of the BMP for the VDV. The Soviet airborne infantry, basically what they replaced their ASU-85s and ASU-57s with. Glide bombs, for example, the ones being used by Germany, are still being evaluated, but are very problematic due to possible use against player-controlled ground targets, especially tanks. Yeah, the cast spam is real there. However, cast spam, they did address this. So what they're going to do is that, well, what they're saying here is currently all rockets use an old damage model. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. The RP3s, for example, can destroy a mouse in one hit just by hitting the top of the tank. Anyways, the old damage model is going to be reworked into a new one soon. As such, rocket damage will be similar to those of tank shells with similar HE filler, and their effectiveness will dramatically decrease. This change will be implemented in a minor patch simultaneously with 1.71 or slightly later. So, this is a good thing for tankers on the ground. It means that you're not going to be killed instantly by RP3s every time they land within a 5-foot radius of you, which is really, really nice. On the flip side, though, it's going to make ground attacking with rockets a lot more difficult. Now, a lot of people don't realize this, and a lot of people go off the stereotype that the RP3 was an amazing anti-ground rocket. Yes, it was good against soft targets, but rockets were not very effective against tanks. At the very most, the only thing they really did was create a psychological effect. If you see rockets upon rockets upon rockets fired at your tank, you're going to be having a bad day. However, the current system of rockets where they just detonate on impact and kill the tank doesn't really make any sense. So Gaijin are going to be scrapping the current system, which is a very, very old damage model from when the rockets were only being used against AI tanks in air battles, to a new system that models them very much like tank shells, which is a very, very good thing. I'm very happy to see that. That's going to cut down a lot on the British rocket spam, and it's going to cut down a lot on the American rocket spam. It's going to force people to use bombs more often, which is a little bit more difficult to do. Armor fatigue lacks feedback to the player, as such will not likely be implemented. What they mean by armor fatigue is if a King Tiger is sitting there and he's taken 5 or 6 shells to the same spot on his frontal plate, eventually in real life that shell will punch through after maybe the second shot. Gaijin are not going to implement this because how do you tell the player that his frontal plate is no longer as effective in this certain area at this certain angle in the heat of a battle? It's very, very difficult to do. So Gaijin have said that it will not likely be implemented. Frankly, I'm kind of glad they're not implementing this system, as it would make playing heavy tanks an absolute nightmare, even more so than they already are for some nations. Lots of damage model and shell damage changes are coming in the next patch, which is fantastic. Some of these shells need to be reworked dramatically, so we'll have to wait and see what exactly they rework. I hope to God they rework APDS. I really hope they do, because APDS has been, especially at the high tier, mostly at tier 5, not so much at tier 4, but at tier 5, APDS is not very good. Q&A answers are going to be posted later this week. Okay. I think they have already posted those, but we'll wait and see. Automatic fire extinguisher is not likely, since it would take away the ability of players to fire back if set on fire. Yeah, that makes sense, considering that Gaijin has this weird system where all the crew drops everything they're doing to fight the fire, which really isn't the case. In most cases, a lot of tanks, especially Soviet ones, actually had the ability to, the driver could activate the fire extinguisher from his station without having to leave the vehicle or leave his station at all. There will be a battle rating review, as always, sometime after the patch. So they're going to release the patch, see how well some of the vehicles are doing, and then hopefully shortly afterwards they're going to, if vehicles need adjusting, they're going to move them up and down. The Kampfpanzer 70, the German version of the MBT-70, is going to be placed after the Maus, most likely, which is interesting. I would have thought that it would go after the Leopard 1, but whatever. The T-64 will likely be in the medium tank line. Okay, that kind of makes sense, as it is basically a main battle tank. And post-war steel armor will have better coefficients than the current RHA, so I guess that means it's going to be a better quality, so it's going to have more effective thickness. Some of the late Tier 5 tanks will be transferred to Tier 6. They will receive newer ammunition if it is necessary for balance, which is quite nice. So if they say move the M60A1 to Tier 6 without the ERA, maybe they'll give it its AP FSDS rounds in the 70s. I imagine the ERA version will already have that, but still, it's good that they're thinking of potentially balancing some of these new vehicles they're moving to Tier 5. Light Soviet missile carriers, such as the BRDM-2 with Malyutkas, are possible. So, again, more AFVs is going to be a good thing, allowing light and fast, high-octane gameplay at Tier 6 with the ability to kill main battle tanks. That's going to be a lot of fun. Lots of interesting things for aviation this year. This could mean a number of things. I'm not totally sure what they mean by that, but I guess more interesting content for the propeller heads. That's not a bad thing. Well, frankly, the propeller heads have not been getting very much in the way of interesting new vehicles since the Italians came out. Gaijin have been focusing a lot of their efforts on fleshing out the ground forces tech tree and developing naval stuff, so airplanes have been taking a back seat, I will admit, and, well, it's good to see that they're going to be getting some more stuff. Modern AP FSDS, this is the last one here. Modern AP FSDS will be different from the current AP FSDS in post-pin damage and slope modifiers, though it will depend on the construction of the shell. That's kind of interesting, because it means that there's going to be definitely a difference between the top-end vehicles in the game and the vehicles leading up to them. Vehicles that are just starting to experiment with AP FSDS, their rounds will not do the same thing as more modernized rounds, which is excellent. A nice differentiation between those rounds is a great thing. For an example, a difference between tungsten rounds or wolfram and depleted uranium. Both of those materials are going to react differently depending on how they hit the armor, what they do after they penetrate the armor. So that's going to be interesting and fun to see. So overall, the upcoming changes look to be fantastic. Hopefully we see them all relatively soon. Of course, I don't want to rush Gaijin when it comes to these things. I'd rather them get it done right the first time. But, regardless, this new upcoming content is a big step for War Thunder Ground Forces and War Thunder as a game in general. And I'm really interested to see where Gaijin goes with this and what other vehicles they potentially implement to balance out some of the other nations. In any case, thank you guys for listening. This has been Many Miles Away. Keep your tracks checked, keep your violence, so please keep around on the tube. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. I will see you guys in the next one.